I think one of the best, what we call them continuity artists or storyboard artists or filmmakers, was Harold Michelson. I had known Harold for some time, and I knew that in getting our crew together to make the birds, we had to have people like Harold. For one thing, Harold could draw very well, but it was above and beyond that. This had to be somebody who could relate to Hitchcock and relate to the way Hitchcock thought. Every frame included birds, all these feelings that we had, and for the most part, the film required that everybody involved had to know what was happening. And the only way you could do that was to draw it. And I would say that even today, with the advance of computers, we still need a human brain to draw what's needed. So whoever the people were involved, everyone had to understand what we were doing. You couldn't go out there and shoot a scene of children running around without knowing what was going to happen with the birds. The children had to react to something that wasn't there. What we had the actual movement down the hill. That was the background. We had several shots. There was a side shot, a back shot. That was carefully choreographed. That was illustrated almost frame by frame. Because all of these, they couldn't be done, you couldn't wing it. You had to know what you were doing before you started. He said, what we will do, this before we shot, he said, we'll bring Melanie out. She's very relaxed. Nothing is troubling anybody, particularly, and she comes over and sits down by a fence that was along here, a rail fence, I think, or whatever it was. And she sat there and smoked a cigarette. And Hitchcock said, we'll just get a loose shot of her as she comes out, sits down, and then we'll become aware of a bird flying in and landing on the jungle gym. We go back to Melanie a little closer this time, and she's still relaxed. We cut away, another bird comes in. We repeat this several times, and each time the camera's moving in closer. And when we finally get to a big head choker, we'll let the camera stay on Melanie until they can't stand it anymore.
Children, now please put your songbooks away, then stand up alongside your desks. We'll go out to recess as soon as everybody gets ready.
He would draw the whole movie. Well, it took him a long time to draw all of this.
Because of the difficult technical problems, we knew we were going to have continuity sketches. Well, Hitchcock loved to work that way anyway. His main thrust in all of his work was preparation. As a matter of fact, he sometimes facetiously said he was bored with shooting the picture. The excitement came with the ideas that were generated in the preparatory portion of the filmmaking process. He liked to have it all clear in his mind so that before he started to shoot, he saw the whole movie in his mind. There are very few people, directors or otherwise, that can hold this kind of a concept. Harold Michelson was the main production illustrator on The Birds. He did, I think, almost all of the illustrations.
I was given the script, and with Bob Boyle, who was the production designer, we would discuss the scene. And in fact, when they went up to Bodega Bay to shoot the whole company, I stayed at Universal. So in many cases, I was on my own in interpreting the script. And I did stuff for a few weeks, and then I got a call to come up there. And so they set me up there. So evidently, what I was doing was right. Hitchcock's method of shooting, moving in on a subject slowly, or objective, subjective way of shooting, which I hadn't heard before and doing, I, of course, went along with it, and I learned an awful lot about how to make a movie.
His working on The Birds, I mean, this was all done in pre-production, was worked out with Albert Whitlock, the mad artist, and a crew that went to San Francisco and sat in the dumps in San Francisco for months shooting birds, background birds. And so the technical aspects of The Birds was quite difficult.
Look at the gas. That man's lighting a cigar.
Hey, you! Stop, John! Don't drop that match! Look out! Get on there!
Mr. Ron!
Watch out!
Mr.
Look out! Look out! Watch out!
This sequence here, where the fire goes along the gasoline and creates another explosion, is subjective. And it's all through Melanie's eyes. Look at this. She's looking left, she looks almost center down, right, and right again. So that's counterpointed editing of her responses. They're very, she's not even in movement. They're static emotional responses, but in juxtaposed to the images that we see, we associate that things are completely out of control. Now we cut to a fully objective shot. It's like a God's eye point of view. Nobody's point of view we think. Now watch. 1 bird, 2 birds, 3 birds. Once they enter the shot becomes very different. And it gives me a sense of spectacle and incredible foreboding about what's going to happen next.
Hitchcock said what we need is a shot which shows everything all in one shot, so that we reorient the audience. He was always thinking of the audience. So what we had to do now was to get a high shot. Some people have called it the bird's point of view, but I think Hitchcock was right. He called it God's point of view, because it was an objective shot, so objective that it wouldn't be anybody's point of view.
The perspective of the gas station shot was laid out by Harold Michelson, who is a master of architectural and camera perspective, geometric perspective. So the whole shot was laid out very carefully for the camera position that was available.
We were on the top of the mountain where the Universal theme park is now. We were up there, and we had set up a big glass plate. Albert Whitlock was the mad artist who was in charge of this. And we shot from the top of this mountain down towards the parking lot, and we marked off with white paint areas where people could run, where the firemen can run. And he proceeded to paint on the glass the black areas. So all the stuff that went on with the fire and everything, we had to keep in certain areas, and he painted in the whole town.
You have to also realize, too, that with a matte painting, with Al's technique, it was done on original negative, and that means that the original negative is preserved to the very end. It's not developed. So it's film that's never developed. So you only have one chance to make it right. Not like you go back and do it over again like we do today in the computer. You have one chance. 2 sometimes, because we'd have two or three takes in reserve in the freezer. We'd take the film out, put it back into a camera, and add an additional exposure, which was a painting. And if something went wrong, that was it.
But if we were going to shoot a high shot down, we had to get birds underneath us.
They went to Anacapa Island to shoot the seagull part. And so the camera was set up on the cliff, looking down at the water, and they would chum the birds. Chum means that you would throw food out for the seagulls, and the seagulls would dive towards the food, and that's how he got the movement of the birds seemingly flying down to the gas station.
So we get a down shot on birds, and then rotoscope, that is, make a hand-painted mat for all these birds for each frame that they're in.
Rotoscoping is a method of tracing the outline of an object that you want to isolate from its background.
The rotoscope person was Millie Weinbrenner, and Millie, frame for frame, did mats and isolated those seagulls.